Hi everyone, and welcome to my presentation titled Data Visualization for Learning Insights with the subtitle Learning in the Margins. This presentation is a part of my assignment for LDTC 625 course Analytics and Evaluation in Learning Design at UMGC, where I'm getting my master's degree. In this presentation, we'll be exploring how adult learners, particularly those with demanding schedules like mine, navigate education in the small pockets of time they can spare. That's what learning in the margins refer to. Studying not during work hours or leisure, but in the late evenings, during lunch breaks, and while commuting. The title reflects my primary focus: how we can use data and visualization tools to uncover meaningful insights about how adults prefer to learn. And the image on the right, a professional woman studying at home, captures that essence perfectly. She's just finished a full workday, and now she's switching gears to invest in her learning. That's the reality for many of us. Before we dive in, I'd like to share two quick disclaimers about AI. First, I originally created some beautiful charts using Claude AI, which in my opinion offers really masterful visual outputs. But just before recording this presentation, I discovered that my charts got vanished. They are gone. So quickly I jumped to ChatGPT, which helped me recreate similar charts. They are a bit crude graphically in comparison to Claude, but you'll see that the data insights are consistent. The lesson here: always have a backup plan when working with AI tools. And don't assume your work will still be there tomorrow. Second, and this one is important, I want to clarify that I am not an AI bot. I am Valentina Lukin, a real person, and yes, I'm narrating this presentation myself. At one point, I considered using an AI-generated voice to smooth out my Slavic accent, but ultimately, I decided that my voice is a part of my story, and I'm proud to share it with you as is. And I did use AI for proofreading and rephrasing in parts, but this presentation reflects my own thoughts, my analysis, and my learning journey. With that said, let's jump in. Let me introduce you to Maria, the central figure in today's story. Maria is 34 years old, a driven professional with a master's degree, and she is currently pursuing her master's degree in learning design and technology. In many ways, Maria represents the modern adult learner, ambitious, curious, and constantly juggling many responsibilities. But here is the key detail: Maria can only study in the evenings, often after a long workday filled with reports, meetings, and non-stop notifications. She studies in what we say the margins of her life, the quick hours before or after everything else is done. And this slide includes an image of Maria and her desk late at night. You'll notice the soft glow from her laptop screen lightening her tired but focused expression. There are books and notes spread out around her, capturing that familiar mix of exhaustion and determination many of us can relate to. Maria recently took a survey that revealed she is a visual learner. She prefers to watch, see, and interact with content through video, diagrams, and infographics rather than long readings and or audio lectures. I choose to highlight Maria's story because she represents more than just one learner. She embodies a broader pattern we saw in our survey data. Maria is a lens through which we can better understand the realities of today's adult learners. Her experience balancing a demanding full-time job, personal life, and academic growth is not unique. In fact, many of our respondents reflected similar circumstances. She is in many ways a composite of the modern learner. What makes Maria stand out is that her learning preferences and motivations mirror the most common responses across our data set. From her preferences for visual learning to her need for flexibility and relevance in course content, Maria's learning profile is representative of a much larger group. By focusing on her, we can humanize the data. Her story helps us translate abstract percentage into real-world needs. She reminds us that behind every data point is a person, someone with goals, barriers, dreams, and a desire to succeed. Before we dive into the visualization, let's take a quick look at the data behind them. This survey was conducted using a Google form and was distributed to working professionals currently enrolled in online learning programs, learners just like Maria. We received responses from 25 adult learners. While this is a relatively small sample, it still provides valuable insight into common learning preferences among busy working adults. It's important to note a few limitations. The data is self-reported, which means it reflects how learners perceive their preferences rather than objective behavior. Still, despite these constraints, the dataset gives us a strong starting point. It helps us begin to see the learning design challenges and opportunities that matter most of this population, especially around flexibility, visualization, and relevance. Now, let's take a closer look at what the radar chart tells us about our learners on this slide. This chart shows the top learning preferences reported by our 25 adult learners. Each spoke represents a different category: visual learning, collaboration, real-world application, use of technology, credentialing, and flexible scheduling. Right away, we see a standout spike at visual learning, with 36% of respondents choosing it as their top preference. This is a clear signal that video content, infographics, and visual tools should be a foundational part of our instructional design. But look closer, and you will notice a tight cluster across the other 5 dimensions, all coming in at 32%. That's not random. It shows us a well-rounded learner profile. These adults want collaboration, flexibility, tech integration, and content that's relevant to their work and recognized through credentials. The overall shape of the radar, broad and even, suggests we are working with highly engaged, motivated learners who know exactly what they want. They are not passive consumers. They have opinions, goals, and clear expectations for how they want to learn. This visualization gives us a powerful snapshot, a kind of learning fingerprint that can guide the design of programs tailored to adult professionals. This slide introduces what I call the collaboration paradox, a pattern we saw in the survey data that reveals a unique tension in how adult learners want to interact. Let's look at the numbers. 32% prefer peer collaboration. They want to connect, share ideas, and learn from one another. Also, 32% prefer asynchronous forums. They want to connect, but on their own schedule. And only 24% are comfortable with structured deadlines, and just 20% favor group projects, which typically involve real-time coordination. So, what does this tell us? The key insight here is that adult learners value collaboration, but they want it without time pressure. They want the freedom to contribute meaningfully without the burden of rigid timelines or asynchronous meetings. This creates a challenge for instructional designers. How do we foster collaboration that is productive yet fully asynchronous and flexible? One solution is to design asynchronous peer engagement activities, such as discussion boards, peer reviews, and collaborative documents that still support accountability through milestones or light touch facilitation. So the takeaway is this: flexibility is essential. Our learners are saying loud and clear, I want to collaborate, but let me do it on my own terms. This slide focuses on a critical tension: what motivates adult learners and what stands in their way. According to the survey data, 32% of respondents are driven by problem solving. They want learning that is applicable, relevant, and helps them tackle real challenges in their professional lives. This is encouraging. It shows that adult learners are purpose-driven and eager to grow when the content feels meaningful. But there is a catch. That same 32% also report time constraints as their biggest barrier. Busy schedules, demanding jobs, and personal responsibilities leave very little room for traditional time-intensive coursework. So we are looking at a learner who is highly motivated but severely time-starved. What does this mean for learning design? It means we must create learning experiences that are efficient, short, focused, and modular, practical, grounded in real-world scenarios, on demand, accessible whenever learners have a spare moment. When we align with both the motivations and constraints of our learners, we turn potential barriers into opportunities for smarter, more flexible learning design. So this slide brings together the key insights from our data and translates them into actionable design strategies. We've seen a consistent learner profile emerge. Visual problem solvers who are eager to learn but need flexibility and autonomy to make that learning fit into the margins of their busy lives. They want to collaborate but on their own schedule. They crave relevance, not theory, and they value credentials that have tangible payoff. So, what does this mean for us as designers? To truly support those learners, we need to lead with visual first content. Think videos, infographics, and interactive simulations. Enable asynchronous collaboration, tools that allow peer interaction without time pressure. Offer modular flexible pathways, bite-sized content that fits into unpredictable schedules, and provide recognized micro-credentials so learners feel they are building something real. This profile is embodied by learners like Maria, motivated professionals balancing life, work, and education. When we design for Maria, we are designing for a much broader segment of learners who are ready to grow if we meet them where they are. Now, let's recap the most important findings from our research. First, visual learning clearly dominates. Over 1/3 of respondents selected visual formats as their top preferences. This tells us that visual first design is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. Second, learners want to collaborate, but on their own terms. There is a clear demand for peer interaction, but also a strong preference for asynchronous formats. That means we need to prioritize tools and structures that allow for connection without constraint. Third, learners are highly motivated by real-world application. They want to solve problems, not just absorb theory. But they are also time constraints. This creates a design imperative. Our instruction must be efficient, practical, and relevant. Taken together, these insights point to a new approach, learning that is visual, flexible, problem-centered, and personalized. If we apply these principles, we can meet today's learners where they are and help them thrive, even in the margins of their busy lives. So, what should we do with these insights? Here are 3 clear, actionable next steps for learning design teams. First, let's validate what we've learned. Conduct focus groups with learners to hear directly from them. Do the patterns we've seen in the data match their lived experiences? Second, perform a content audit of existing courses. How well does our current material align with the visual, collaborative, and flexible learning preferences we uncovered? Where are the gaps? Third, it's time to experiment. Pilot a redesigned model that reflects these findings. Use visual first content, asynchronous collaboration, and real-world scenarios. Then gather feedback, measure engagement, and iterate based on learner input. By taking these next steps, we move beyond theory into practice, designing learning that is not only informed by data, but also grounded in empathy for real learners. When we design for learners like Maria, we design for the many adults striving to grow within the tight margins of their lives. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of how data visualization can illuminate the real needs of adult learners. As we've seen, today's learners are motivated, time-pressured, and eager for flexible, meaningful learning experiences. With the right data and design strategies, we can meet them where they are and help them grow. If you have any questions, ideas, or feedback, I'd love to connect. And remember, never rely on just one AI tool, and never underestimate the power of learning in the margins. Thank you for watching.